This is a Northfield F5 mandolin, and I don't know how old it is. Don't know anything about it. I have to find out. I do know that it's older. It's got some wear on the back. Been played quite a bit. And I know a little bit about Northfield. You know, I know the Big Mon. I've played some of their other mandolins. I'm not sure where the F5, that's what it's called, Northfield F5. I'm not sure where that fits in the line. So I'm willfully ignorant about the mandolin. And I'm just looking at it as it is. So I want to tell you a little bit about it. My job is to try to get the intonation a little bit better. And as I explained somewhere, it had wide frets on it that were also worn. When wide frets wear on a mandolin, what happens is the contact point of the string moves to the front of the fret rather than the middle of the fret, which is where it's intended to be. So when that happens, your intonation goes off. And it's really bad when you got a couple of frets that are worn and a couple of frets that are not so worn. The not worn ones will intonate in the middle of the fret like they're supposed to because there's a crown there still. The worn frets will intonate on the front of the fret because the wear will flatten the fret. And the wider the fret, the worse that problem is. I'm not a big fan at all of wide frets on mandolins unless they're made out of stainless steel or Evo or something like that where it will maintain that crown for a long, long time. These frets had been filed, it looked like, and they were flat and just not good. So I refretted it with stainless steel that's 37 thousandths of an inch tall and I think 40 thousandths of an inch wide. It's almost a square fret. And the intonation got a lot better, as I show later on at the end of this video for the owner. What else about this mandolin? The nut was off, and I have a picture of it, which I'll try to include on this video here. The E to G spacing was off, and the E was way closer to the edge of the fingerboard than the G was. So the easiest thing there was to just make a new nut, which I did, and I had a piece of fossil walrus ivory sitting around that was just the right size for a new nut on this mandolin. So I made it a fossil walrus ivory nut. There you go. Nice good spacing on it. I always go for even spacing between these and the same spacing in between. 60 thousandths of an inch here, and in this case I think it was 165 in between. I took that off the previous nut and then just made sure I got it all as even as possible. What else about this mandolin? It has tone bars in it. I can feel them in there, and it comes to about that far from the edge of the sound hole, so that's more of a lower style bracing. And over here, I can't even feel them. There they are, way in there. So tone bar comes over here. Couldn't tell you anything about the finish. It looks like it's lacquer. I don't know anything about the top either. I know it's spruce, but whether it's red spruce or Sitka, I don't really know. It's got some nice silking going on right here, so that's cool. Back's pretty, two-piece back. The neck is kind of a little bit of a chunkier neck. It's got a rounded V to it, and it's kind of a fat neck. Got a nice taper to it. Whereas, you know, I played a Big Mon in elderly music, and it had a funny taper, I thought. I thought it had the C shape to it here, but it's got a little bit more fatness up in here, a little more fatness up in here. I didn't like it as well. This one's got a nice smooth taper. I'm really picky about taper on a mandolin neck. I want it to be even, smooth, and not C-shaped. My Elkhorn mandolin, my personal mandolin, was a little bit C-shaped when it came in, and you know, I got it and shaved it down. Got the calipers and measured it and shaved it down here, made it even graduation, which I like much better. This has triple binding on it. Triple on the sides and on the front, and it's a good job, you know. I know this mandolin's got some age to it, and I can just barely feel, you know, the binding ridges right there. So it's a good job. Triple binding on the side of the fingerboard here. The front is a single, which is the way I like it because then the fret takes up most of the fret slots. You get mandolins that have the triple binding on the other way, where a lot of binding on the front, and I don't like that because it doesn't leave much room for the fret tangle to fit. It's got the typical Northfield headstock logo. Tuners are good. Bridge is good. It's got a nice tailpiece. One thing about this tailpiece, though, the owner complained about it going out of tune, and he asked if the tuners were okay. In my experience, tuners are almost never the cause of tuning issues. It just takes so much stress for that string to rotate this thing. I don't think I can ever say that the tuners were the cause of a tuning issue. The cause, in my experience on a mandolin, has always been one of three things. The wrap around the tuner peg here, the nut binding, and then releasing and causing the tuning to go out, or something going on with the tailpiece. And I replaced the nut, so hopefully that's going to be good. But I will say this, is that when you wrap the headstock, do your strings like this, where I'll have one over and then the rest of them are going under. If you do that, the string will automatically, I'm trying to get the camera, automatically pinch the string right there. The top winding and the bottom windings pull together and they pinch the string, and you will have very, very, very little tuning issues that way. If you wrap a lot of wraps around the peg head, it'll take a while for all that tension to come out of it. So I don't like to wrap 50 wraps around there, you know. 2 on the bottom. Let the strings come together and pinch this little loose end right here. Yeah, well, less problems that way. Second thing that happened on this one, and I watched it happen, it's got a nice tailpiece, you know, with the little pegs on it. Like that, and the string comes up through the hole. Well, what happens is the winding of the string is catching on the inside of the hole right there. And I can see it right here. I don't know if I can quite get it on the camera right here. But right up in here, right up in there, the winding of the string is catching when it comes through the hole. You can see this string. See the winding sticking out right there on that second E string? That's because I broke a string, and that is a banjo string. And it's clearing the entire tailpiece and not catching on anything. Well, I watched, and I broke the string, that's why it's a banjo string. I watched that winding catch on the edge, and then it'll push the winding down like that. It'll never tune, it'll constantly slip, 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 slip. I put fresh strings on this mandolin last night, and when I came in this morning, they were all pretty well in tune except for that one E, and it was like 3 steps down, so I knew immediately something was slipped. And I looked down there and I saw that winding starting to bunch up, and I started tuning it, and it wouldn't move, and then it went pow! And the winding came off of the hole, shot back there, and then a few minutes later it broke, because that's not the way it's supposed to work. So I think what I'm going to do on this mandolin, so I'm just telling you this for other people that have mandolins that have tuning problems, it's almost never the tuning pegs. It's always the nut. It's always either the way you wrap your strings, the nut, or the tailpiece. On the Gibson style tailpieces where they have the second anglets, don't take your treble strings and go around the hook, because that'll just cause problems. It'll catch on there and it'll cause the same problem. Just run them all straight. On this tailpiece, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and glue a piece of leather on the inside lip of that, so as to push the strings down away from the lip. It'll also help keep some buzzes from happening. Those things can just about vibrate off the lid, off the lip. The strings can just about vibrate off the lip of that tailpiece. And my mandolin, I would put a little piece of leather up in there, push the strings down a little bit, make a damping force. That's probably what I'm going to do. Let's play this thing. Oh, what should we play? Got the action up just a little higher than I would prefer. It's about 70 thousandths of an inch, if I remember, and I run mine like more like 50. pretty good mandolin, you know. I like it all right. I'm going to do an A-B with it and a Kentucky KM1000. They're both imported mandolins. This is probably a little bit more expensive than the Kentucky, but I think they're fairly comparable. I know the Kentucky has a red spruce top, and I know it has lower style tone bracing, so I think that's a pretty comparable A-B. My other mandolins, the Chris Shot has an X bracing and an Engelmann top, and my Elkhorn has tone bars but an Engelmann top. So I think this is mostly comparable to the Kentucky. This is a Kentucky KM1000. This is my daughter's mandolin, and it's here for just a little tune-up thing. I think it's an 07, if I recall. It's been in a couple of videos, and it is a very lore-inspired mandolin as far as the binding goes, where the tone bar is, the location, just the general looks and feel of the thing. It's not a modern mandolin, like an X-brace mandolin or so. It's a good mandolin for these kind of comparisons because it's a mid-priced imported mandolin. This one has nickel strings on it, so it's going to have a little different tone than the other one, which has Diodario EXPs on it. But that's okay, you know. You're still listening for the tone qualities of the instrument. So. Okay, we're going to run through the tuner here. We'll go on the G string. Pretty good. The chord says it's a little sharp, The strobe says it's okay. I have found that the Korg to be a pretty good tuner, and the strobe is not as sensitive as you'd think it would be. It still says it's pretty good though. Anytime you get a little bit of variation going up the neck on a note, go back and check the open note again. See, it's a little bit sharp on the Korg. It's good. Strobe says it's good. Korg is back on now. Here's the harmonic. See, the harmonic says it's a little flat on the Korg. So that's the interesting thing here. See, the Korg tuner says that the open note is on, but the harmonic is flat. So that's impossible. You're going to kind of balance these back and forth. You don't play harmonics, you play fretted notes. So Strobe says it's good. Strobe says that's good. And that's good. That's about as good as you can accurately tune accurately fret the thing. Let's go to the E string. Okay, I'm going with the strobe. Dead steady. Pretty steady. Okay, so again, that's as steady as you can get. That's as good as I can intonate an instrument. Just a little bit of finger push. You know, you gotta watch your fingers. If you push just a little bit, one way or the other, you're gonna knock it out of tune. I suspect the open string. I always tune to open and fretted. Pretty good. Pretty good on the D. The A string is always a little bit of problem on a mandolin. It's a tune. Again.